Good evening. It is the second day of December 2025 on The Explainer tonight.
Kwani watu wanafikiri hii kazi ya rais ni kazi rahisi ya kupigiwa kelele kila siku? Mimi nangojea siku mimi nitatoka hapa niende.
I respect the Constitution. President Ruto dismisses talk of removing presidential term limits.
I have verified the correspondence received and hereby communicate that the majority party has effected a change in the office of the Senate Majority Whip.
Halwale kicked out. Senators unanimously vote to strip Kakamega Senator of his Majority Whip position.
Nje huko wanakaa Tanzania ifanye moja, ifanye mbili, ifanye tatu, halafu ndio itakuwa hivi. Who are you?
You cannot dictate how we run Tanzania. President Samia Suluhu tells off foreign critics days after the European Union cut funds to Tanzania. From plans to build 900 police stations to expanding the anti-narcotics unit, President Ruto unveils the Jukwaa la Usalama report proposals.
And speaking of those proposals on the Jukwaa la Usalama, after a countrywide tour across 47 counties, that report is finally out. Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen, here in charge of Interior, will be speaking with us regarding that report and the general state of national security. Waziri, it's good to see you. Thank you for being with us. We shall be with you in just a moment. Let's get the show started.
Live from Citizen TV, this is The Explainer with Yvonne Okwara.
Njoki Shege is our sign language interpreter. President William Ruto today has dismissed claims that there are plans to extend his presidential term, insisting that those spreading such rumors do not understand the weight and responsibility of leading a nation. He stressed that once his term ends, he will hand over power to whoever succeeds him. His remarks contradict some of his close allies who've been vocal in supporting an extension of his stay in office. Melita Oletenges reports.
Talk of extending the presidential term is not new under President William Ruto's administration. Some MPs have gone as far as proposing constitutional amendments. One suggestion calling for a 7-year term and another for up to 20 years. Today, the president finally broke his silence and rejected those proposals.
Watu wengine wako na tabia mbaya. Wakaenda wakasema, huyu mtu amesema atakuwa rais miaka 20. Kwani watu wanafikiri hii kazi ya rais ni kazi rahisi ya kupigiwa kelele kila siku? Mimi nangojea siku mimi nitatoka hapa niende. Mwingine achukue asonge. Ama namna gani? I want to make my contribution. Mungu akinipatia nafasi, mimi nitafanya bidii. Kwa ile Mungu atanipatia nafasi. I have no interest.
The debate kicked off in earnest in 2022, just 2 months after the general election, when Fafi MP Yaqub Salah proposed scrapping the 2-term limit and instead introducing an age cap, suggesting no president should serve beyond age 75.
So sisi kuna mjadala tunaoleta mswada katika bunge, tunasema hiyo mambo ya 2 terms haitufai. Kama rais anafanya kazi nzuri aendelee, hatuwezi kumtoa kabisa.
Nandi Senator Samson Cherargei later revived the discussion, proposing a 7-year presidential term. He argued that the first year is spent forming government, while the 5th year is consumed by political activities that disrupt development.
So you only have 3 years that you can really work for the people. And I think if you give 7 years, you minus the 2 that one you do in settling and then 1 during the campaigning period, you'll get 5 years, which all Kenyans are arguing about.
The latest to push for a term extension is Devki Group Chairman Narendra Raval, speaking in Tororo, Uganda. For the second time, he suggested that Ruto's leadership needs more time to transform the country.
Again, I will repeat, although Constitution doesn't allow, but I will say you should be there for 20 years.
Some political analysts frame the proposals as legitimate constitutional discussions, while others see them as driven by political ambition and selfish interests. President William Ruto, however, has firmly rejected the idea, likely putting the matter to rest. Melita Oletenges, Citizen TV.
Opposition leaders maintain that the recent Mbeere and Malava by-elections were not free and that their candidates won but were denied victory through rigging by the government. Speaking during the memorial service of former Cabinet Minister Joseph Konzolo Munyao at the Nairobi Baptist Church, the leaders warned Kenyans to be vigilant against forces attempting to roll back electoral reforms, insisting they remain optimistic of victory in the 2027 general election. Mary Mwoki reports.
Opposition leaders used a memorial service for the late Joseph Konzolo Munyao to tear into government, accusing the Kenya Kwanza administration of stealing recent by-elections and warning of a nation teetering on the brink.
Our country is at crossroads, and it is up to us to weigh where we may have gone wrong and where we need to correct. Mbeere and Malava and all this by-elections, something was terribly wrong.
Wiper Patriotic Front leader Kalonzo Musyoka said results in Mbeere and Malava were manipulated and warned that the country is edging back toward the dark days of electoral malpractice. Kalonzo insisting that opposition candidates did not lose the by-elections, hinting at foul play he'd reveal later when the time is right.
As we lay him to rest, the party that he so proudly led and was part of has just gone through a by-election. I want to, in my own view, say DP did not lose in Mbeere North.
He has taught us that we can remain and have fidelity in multi-party democracy, fidelity to our parties. And this is what we must fight for, to defend our multi-party democracy at the hour of great peril.
The leaders amplified calls for electoral integrity and unity ahead of the elections. The event underscored deep divisions in Kenya's political landscape.
His contribution to the growth of the Democratic Party as a strong political party reminds all of us the need to develop strong political parties for the growth of our democracy in this country.
Friends and family eulogized Munyao as a man of integrity and fierce love for family, a gentle, principled leader committed to family, public service, and the struggle for multi-party democracy.
None of us saw this coming. But Mzee, you are a strong man. You are loved and you are respected.
We honor his legacy for two things. Firstly, consistently being in one political party. My brother just said he was a life member of DP. Secondly, for being the first to ever give away power and step down for the next generation. This he did at the DP NDC, where he stepped down for Honorable GB Muturi.
As tributes flowed for the late Munyao, the opposition said safeguarding those values in Kenya's electoral process is the most fitting honor. Mary Mwoki, Citizen TV.
Tanzanian President Samia Suluhu Hassan has criticized foreign nations for what she described as interference in Tanzania's internal affairs, accusing them of backing opposition claims that the October elections were flawed. Addressing the nation, President Samia pushed back against mounting pressure from several countries, including the United States, that are calling for an independent investigation into alleged human rights violations during the just concluded polls. She said such demands were shameful, arguing that external actors had no right to dictate how Tanzania should handle its affairs. Citizen TV's Ben Kirui tells us more.
In what marked her fourth national address on the matter of elections-related violence, President Samia Suluhu Hassan took on foreign nations, criticizing them for interfering with Tanzania's internal affairs, as seemingly angry Samia rebuking the continued international scrutiny over the deadly election violence.
Hawana hata aibu. Nje huko wanakaa, Tanzania ifanye moja, ifanye mbili, ifanye tatu, halafu ndio itakuwa hivi. Who are you?
She noted that Tanzania had never questioned how other nations handled similar episodes. The European Parliament last week called for suspension of AU funds for Tanzania, citing the election-related violence. President Samia said even the funds foreign parties claim to be providing are far less than before.
Niwaulize, kwao hayatokei? Kwao hayatokei? Tumenyanyua sauti sisi kusema ya kwao. Wanadhania bado wao ni masters wetu, ni wakoloni kwetu. Kitu gani? Ni fedha chache wanayotugaia. Na fedha yenyewe sasa hivi haipo. Tunafanya biashara, wao wapate na sisi tupate. Ndipo tunaposimamia.
Addressing the nation during a meeting with the Dar es Salaam elders, President Suluhu went further to say that the unrest witnessed after the polls was deliberately orchestrated and financed by foreign powers seeking to destabilize Tanzania.
Nyuma hatukuwa tunapigwa mawe sana. Tuko tunahesabika tu ni nchi maskini inayoendelea polepole na nini, lakini tulivyofungua utajiri, tukatumia rasilimali zetu kwa utalii, tukatumia madini yetu kibiashara, tukatumia bahari yetu na maziwa yetu kujenga uchumi wetu. Hili sasa ndilo linaloumiza watu huko ulimwenguni.
President Samia also took aim at the opposition, alleging that they opted out of the election after sensing imminent defeat owing to the ruling Chama cha Mapinduzi's strong support base. She dismissed the claims of unfairness in the process, despite the fact that the main opposition party had been barred from participating and its leader Tundu Lissu was charged with treason.
Hawakuzuiliwa na mtu. Walikataa wenyewe kuingia kwa sababu walishajua wasingefanikiwa. Walishajua aibu ingewapata kwa kazi iliyofanyika na mwitikio wa wananchi kwa Chama cha Mapinduzi.
President Samia's podcast calls for nationwide anti-government demonstrations on December 9th intensify. Ben Kirui, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Kakamega Senator Boni Halwale has been kicked out of his position as the chief whip of the majority party in the Senate after Kenya Kwanza senators unanimously voted to remove him from office. Halwale, who campaigned for the united opposition candidate in the just concluded Malava by-elections, has been replaced by Bungoma Senator Wakoli Wafula. This comes as the newly elected members of parliament were sworn in, with legislators in the broad-based government bragging that they will also trounce their opponents in similar fashion in 2027. Emmanuel Tor reports.
Senator Boni.
He has been a dead man walking for months now, publicly showing open defiance to the UDA party, where he has been serving as the chief whip of the majority side in Senate. Tuesday, the embattled Kakamega Senator Boni Halwale became the first high-profile casualty of the Kenya Kwanza purge, following their resounding win in Thursday's by-election. The ruling coalition Tuesday's Senate parliamentary group meeting, resolving to strip the self-proclaimed bullfighter of his title.
The new office holder, therefore, with immediate effect is Senator David Wafula Wakoli, MP.
All is not lost. The future is bright.
Bungoma Senator Wakoli Wafula now takes over as his replacement. However, Halwale's hour of reckoning has been long coming. His recent campaign for the DAP Kenya candidate in the Malava constituency by-election, Seth Panyako, adding to his long list of political sins against the government.
President Ruto, let me tell you, 2027 kitaumana. Hapo ndio wakati utajua kwamba hapa Kakamega unahitaji Halwale ndio ufaulu.
At one point, his sentiments captured the attention of his party leader, President William Ruto, who returned fire in equal measure.
Sasa wewe ndio kiongozi wa UDA. Alafu unakuja hapa unajaribu kuuliza maswali. Sasa wewe ndio utauliza ama wananchi watauliza?
So help me God. This comes as the newly elected leaders were sworn in. They include Baringo Senator Vincent Chemitei, Mbeere North Legislator Leo Wamuthende, Ahmed Hassan of Banisa, Boyd Were, who clinched his late father's seat to represent Kasipul constituency, Magarini legislator Harrison Garama Kombe, and Ugunja MP Moses Omondi.
That if you continue with your retrogressive and backward ethnic-based politics, politics that has no vision, has no plan for the people of Kenya, 2027 is nigh, and you will see fire once again.
Sitaki kusema hii imeenda the way I said the other time, but hii ilikuwa kionjo. This is kionjo. The real deal is coming.
The opposition side also launching a pushback.
Pesa zilimwagwa na magunia, Mheshimiwa Speaker, na corruption ilikuwa ya hali ya juu sana pale, Mheshimiwa Speaker.
The cleanup exercise within the broad-based house is expected to continue in coming days, even as the broad-based team, buoyed by their statement to win in the just concluded by-elections, go after the rogue members who campaigned against the party officials. Emmanuel Tor, Citizen TV, Parliament Buildings, Nairobi.
A security report handed over to President William Ruto on Tuesday morning has revealed the growing threat of criminal gangs in the country. The Jukwaa Usalama report indicates that there are more than 130 criminal gangs in Nairobi County, with other regions also affected. As Marianne Nyambura reports, President William Ruto has announced sweeping reforms in Kenya's security and national administration sector, aimed at tackling narcotics, gender-based violence, and strengthening police services across the country.
Collaboration and interaction with...
The launch of the Jukwaa Usalama report at State House, Nairobi, comes barely 7 months after the county-to-county forums spearheaded by the Interior Ministry began. The report reveals that criminal gangs are widespread across the country, engaging in political violence that ranges from kidnapping to murder. Nairobi County tops the list with 130 criminal gangs. Other affected counties are Kakamega, Busia, Bungoma, Machakos, Nakuru, and Kwale.
And this engagement was very open and robust. In fact, by the time we did 3 counties, many people in the security sector called me and said, why are you having an open discussion on security issues with people like this? You are embarrassing the government.
President William Ruto said the government will expand the anti-narcotics unit from 160 officers to 500 officers, with 34 offices established nationwide. These measures follow concerns raised by Kenyans during security forum sessions held earlier this year.
Nimeambia IG tuanzishe National Government Administration Police Unit to operationalize na askari wa kwanza 1860 wakuwe deployed.
We are looking at security being a key enabler to the vision that you carry for our country. As you continue to envision a better Kenya and what we need to do to build a better, more prosperous country.
The president also emphasized the need for collaboration in tackling gender-based violence. Sexual and gender-based violence featured prominently during the Jukwaa Usalama forums in 4 out of the 8 regions, including Rift Valley, Western, Nyanza, and Central regions. Other issues raised during the Jukwaa Usalama forums touched on illicit alcohol in the Rift Valley region, Nyanza, Central, and for the coastal region, drugs and substance abuse. To ensure accountability among security officers, government will digitize police records and occurrence books.
Tumekubaliana ya kwamba kila chief in the next 6 months atakuwa na tablet. Ya kufile report on a digital platform.
The Jukwaa Usalama report outlines strategies to confront bandits, narcotics traffickers, organized criminal gangs, tackle human-wildlife conflicts, cattle rustling, and land conflicts. Marianne Nyambura, Citizen TV.
And Interior CS Kipchumba Murkomen is here with me to discuss that report and the state of national security in the country. Waziri, thank you for being with us. We will get much deeper into this report, but it's interesting findings coming out regarding gangs in the country. And some would say those have also been politicized.
Gangs actually survive on politics. First of all, we have a lot of gangs in the country. Some are goons who have not graduated to the level of gangs, but they are more resilient gangs like the Gaza, who have been around for more than 15 years, Mungiki, MRC, some called 42 Brothers, Confirm in Nakuru and Watizeti. These ones have been more than 10 years. Of course, you know the story of Mungiki and MRC. It goes down, sometimes comes up, and then they mutate. Now, what fuels these gangs? How do they survive? They survive by being contracted. They are contracted first by unscrupulous business people to take people's land. You must have seen, you've seen it many a times when it's reported in the news in Nairobi, some goons coming and taking over somebody's property, being used by somebody who wants to grab the land. This is very rampant in places like Machakos, some parts of Kajiado, in Coast region, in some places where land is very prime, like Kitale and its environs, and Rift Valley, in most parts of the Rift Valley. Number two is that it's also fueled by politics. So in cases where, especially majorly in the western part of the country, where now politicians have formalized gangs for hiring. If you have to go for a public function, you know, everybody's going with his own group and the gangs, then from Friday to Sunday, that the economy is actually rises and they survive on it. So they are sustained by political activities and people who are hiring them for purpose of political activity. So it is not that they're being politicized. It's actually that they are being co-opted by politicians to provide services. And they're not loyal to anybody. They're just loyal to the person that can pay or the highest bidder.
Okay, because this has been a long-standing issue,
Absolutely.
The issue of gangs.
Yeah.
How different what are you going to do about it now?
What we have done, or what we are planning to do, is that, first of all, identification and recognition of the challenges that we have with gangs, including the Panga Boys that we had in Coast and the operations, you remember, that we did. What we intend to do is to do an intelligence-led operation, and this will target the gang leaders and the financiers. This is not going to be an easy issue. I don't want to promise the people of Kenya that it's going to be easy, because sometimes the people who sustain these gangs are holding a lot of resources and sometimes compromise even security officers, because corruption also plays a role. Some also hold very influential positions, members of parliament, governors, and if you know, a governor is running his own government. Before you talk about the national government, he's running his local government, and they're sustaining. They even have officers. Seemingly, the chief officer will be in charge of maintaining the gangs to ensure that the governor has always a crowd that works with him or her to functions. And so it's not going to be an easy thing, but the IG as now is sitting down to formulate the strategy on how to dismantle these gangs, and it will start by targeting the leaders and targeting those who are financing and supporting them. This is a threat to national security. It's not just going to be about one government or the other. We must look at it holistically as, and sometimes, the politicians who are making the highest noise are actually the ones who are recruiting these gangs. And so we need the support of the entire population to ensure that we do not give political cover. Sometimes when we go for them, we arrest, we charge. You saw what happened over the weekend, where gangs came to a church, and then two groups were fighting outside the gate of a PCA church in Kariobangi. Yeah. And the police even were forced to use tear gas to just disperse them. This is really something that if we do not deal with now, it is going to take over the security of our country. And therefore, the IG is now sitting down to formulate a team. And one of the challenges he had expressed to us was that because of the strength of the DCI office, there is need to ensure that we strengthen the number of DCI officers that are going to work with within the DCI office for purpose of this operation. And it's our duty now that we have recruiting 10,000 police officers, that some of them will be taken for specialized training to help in dealing with these gangs.
Okay. We've heard that a lot.
Yes.
We've heard it before.
Absolutely.
How different is it this time? Because everybody says those who are paying the gangs for their own are known.
Yeah.
You've just said here, in certain instances, it's county governments and county governors.
Yeah.
It seems the government knows a lot, but is seemingly unable to deal with this issue? Well,
it's not. It's the unfortunate thing, for example, during the Maandamano early this year, we arrested over 200-300 people. Actually, over 1,000. But those who we took to court really to charge them were almost 500. And some we charged them for terrorism because they came and burned police station and so forth. What happened? The Law Society of Kenya, the media, the civil societies generally, the international community condemned the government for dealing with ruthlessly protesters. And they have been given a very good name, that they are protesters. They are not. Protesters are peaceful people. Protesters cannot burn a police station, cannot steal guns, cannot do the things we saw here in April. And if you saw the way I was standing firm on this issue, is because if we don't do so, if we politicize, if we do it for the sake of pacifying or pleasing some section of the population, we are going to lose the nation. So what we did as a government is to make sure that we support the DCI and the police to do thorough investigations. DPP did its part to ensure that they are charged. Unfortunately, the courts still think that there is room for violence during exercising freedoms of expression and picketing and such. And therefore, if you look at the Jukwaa Usalama report, one of the things that is insisting is that there is need for multi-agency cooperation. In fact, one of the recommendations is that at the county level, we need to use court users association to agree on how best we are going to be dealing with crimes, especially high crimes like presence of gangs, because it cannot be done by one section of the government alone. Okay, so you talk of other people sort of preventing the work of the government in terms of fighting this. But we saw some really ugly scenes of violence in the just concluded by-elections in Malava, in Bere. In certain instances, Waziri, we saw people carrying rungus. And machetes.
And machetes. Yeah. In full view of police officers who were themselves armed, seemingly doing nothing to curb this. That's not all. We've seen the same thing happening even during the protests that you speak of, not just this year, but last year as well, where you see unidentified people who are certainly not, one would imagine, police officers because they're carrying crude weapons. And they're walking along and they're terrorizing people in full view of the police. And there have been accusations that the goons are actually being used by the police or being allowed to run free, especially during protests.
In some instances, police officers are part of the accomplices. They are compromised. You saw over the weekend that there was a police officer also greeting while smiling and laughing. One of the guys was carrying a machete and waving a panga. And the IG is in the process of ensuring that those police officers are held into account. We cannot lie that, you see, we can't lie that there is a problem also among police officers or even government officers or even politicians, including those who are in government side. This is not something that is confined to you being in opposition. As I've told you, there are people who even support government, but they invest in gangs. And this issue requires certain level of courage on the part of the Inspector General of Police and Director of Criminal Investigation to deal with this. And let me say this because I sit now in a position of privilege, but for a certain period of time. Somebody else will come and do this job. Some other government will come to place after whatever period of time. The thing is, we must confront gangs and we must agree as citizens, not whether you are in government or opposition, that we cannot condone this issue of gangs and we cannot protect them by virtue of somebody is supporting the president or opposing the president. It must be based on salvaging the nation, because once you are not holding office, you will go back to being a backbencher, so to speak, as a common citizen, and these gangs will come to your farm and they will take it over. By the way, let me tell you something. Yeah, just as most of the farms that are being invaded by gangs now are farms that were held by powerful men and women who held powerful offices in the past. So this thing is a threat now and is a threat in the future. And I want to promise the people of Kenya that the approach I take from a policy perspective, directing giving policy directions to the Inspector General of Police and other agencies of government and supporting them resource-wise is going to be impartial, because I have the foresight and I am now grown up enough to understand that some of these things that you quote at the moment and you compromise can become lethal in the future.
All right, I have 30 seconds to go to a commercial break. I just want to ask this because you seemed to agree that there are certain members of the police service who work with the goons and work with the gangs. Am I to understand it is also your admission that even during the protest there were gangs who were either supported by the police or the police looked the other way?
Basically, you know, let me say, for the protest I can say this, because I've engaged the police officer and I asked them, you know, you are standing there and there are people holding machetes and rungus and you are doing nothing. He tells you that, you know, consider the numbers of the police that were present there and consider the fact that these people are armed, you know, and they are large in number. If I use my gun and I kill somebody, extrajudicial killing. If I attempt to arrest, I'm going to be attacked by these people. I'm also a human being. So the thing is, these gangs have grown to certain numbers that becomes a threat even to police officers providing
So the police are
law
helpless
enforcement.
in instances?
Yes, there are instances definitely that police officers are helpless. And let me say this, haven't you seen a policeman's hand cut? Haven't you seen a policeman who was clobbered? You've never seen a lady in town that has been hit. Why? Because if we have constricted the capacity of the police to manage violent crowd by putting them under you know, a lot of restrictions in terms of managing these criminals, even in some instance of use of force. What they do is that in some instances, when they see that their lives in danger, they become, you know, impartial. They don't want to do anything. But there are cases also, perhaps, that you will find police officers have been compromised, you know, to do the wrong thing. And those cases are always investigated and charged. But by and large, most of the police officers, or a greater percentage of the police officers, are well-meaning. They want to protect their country, but they want our support. That's why you see me speaking the way I speak, boldly in defense of police officers, because if they continue living in the fear that every time they do something, the media, the civil society, the IPOA, and everybody else attack them, and they are left on their own, then you weaken the ability of police officers to respond in such
in your view,
danger.
when the media raises issues, and IPOA, whose work it is to investigate police excesses and overreach, that hampers the work of the police?
Yes, if it is done in a partial manner. But if it's done impartially, there is nothing wrong with it, because they have a constitutional duty. The only problem is that police officers, in most cases, that's why I gave even a directive the other day that these police officers must be given legal representation when they are going through this process. You remember, consider their level of education and their capacity to defend themselves, and then they are appearing before a commission is represented by lawyers and so forth, and then sometimes they are just there to defend themselves. Nobody is helping them to make sure that their part of the story is heard. So our defense of police officers is to defend those who are doing the right thing. But those, of course, who are doing the wrong thing, you know that even from our perspective, we have been very quick to hand them over to whether to law enforcement agencies, whether it is bribery issues, whether they are unnecessary use of force or unconstitutional use of force, and so forth. So there's both ways. It's a delicate balance, but as you balance that issue, you must realize that there is a pool of young people, a critical pool of young people who do not have a job, who are quickly recruited by actors, different actors, political or otherwise, for purpose of goonsism. It starts like they are goons, and then it graduates slowly to become gangs because they are incentivized with the resources. And therefore, you need to appreciate the National Police Service when they are, on one hand, trying to address this issue, and the other, of course, they must do it with observance of human rights and the law.
Let's take a break. We're back with more on that, including more on the report, getting into some of the findings and some of the recommendations and proposals. We are speaking live today on The Explainer with Cabinet Secretary in charge of Interior and National Administration, Kipchumba Murkomen, on the Jukwaa Usalama report here on The Explainer. We're back with more in a moment. From plans to building 900 police stations to the expansion of the anti-narcotics unit, we speak to Interior CS Kipchumba Murkomen. All right, welcome back to The Explainer. Tonight we continue with our conversation regarding the state of national security. The Cabinet Secretary in charge of Interior is still here with me. CS, let's talk about the Jukwaa la Usalama, trips that was across the 47 counties. Maybe you could just give us the highlights of, what you saw and give us some summary of what's in the report and the experiences of going around the country.
We started Jukwaa la Usalama from 7th of April up to 2nd of October this year, and we did 48 forums, and we did it 48 because in Mandera we had to do 2 of them, which is in Mandera Town and Elwak, for security reasons to facilitate movement of our chiefs and other stakeholders. In these forums, we had over 60,000 participants, which included the Ngao officers, all the OCSs in that particular place, and then sub-county security teams, and then members of the public, which included the village elders and civil society organization, business community, and so forth. These forums, the uniqueness of Jukwaa la Usalama is that it was open, robust discussion where chiefs accused OCSs openly, OCSs, gave feedback openly. We had members of public giving us feedback as the security sector. Issues were raised that, were unique to every county. And as a result, we prepared this report, but we have a bigger, library of information that we have. Through also this forum, how we designed this was to ensure that we don't just go there to listen to people, we go there to solve problems. So what happened is that we would go with the whole team, the IG, or even the IG is not there, the DIG, myself, or some of the PSs and so forth. And when citizens raised issues, for example, strength of police officers, the weaknesses they have with some of them being drunk and so forth, the IG being there would solve that problem immediately there. There are some things that we managed to sort out by ensuring that the chiefs and the OCSs are working together, especially when it comes to dealing with alcohol abuse and all those. So I took it as a working day, because the meetings would start from 8-something or 9 up to, say, for example, in Lodwar, where we sat up to 8 p.m. And through this program, we took it that those 48 days were working days out of Nairobi, so that the office continues to run by resolving issues that are in those places. If it is banditry, we sit down together and say, what are we going to do with banditry? What will be the role of the chiefs? What is the security team going to do? And of course, because we are observant as leaders, based on the feedback that we get, you take it in your mind, and you sit down and say, the OCS here is the weakling, the chiefs here are weak, the registration process here is weak, there are certain officers who are not doing their job in a particular area, and therefore it also helped us to change the human resource. In some places also there was a demand for services to be taken closer, say birth certificate, death certificates to be taken closer, and we'll sit down and agree and say, from the budget that we have, how many other people can we hire, and how can we take services closer to people? And we resolve it, so that we didn't want it to be a talk shop where you go there and then listen to problems and write their problems. We wanted, by the end of the process, we will have resolved certain issues. That is why, before the end of Jukwaa la Usalama, we had resolved the question of training, so that immediately we looked for resources, and we trained 6,000 chiefs, nearly 5,000, almost 5,900 chiefs who had not been trained, some of them since 1997, built their capacity to be able to handle security challenges on the ground. We also started a training for the OCSs and the OCS conference to empower them. In the process also, we implemented issues, dealt with issues of disarmament, for example. As a result of Jukwaa la Usalama and working together with the people in Kerio Valley and the leadership working together, the chiefs helped us to speak to the community, and we did a lot of disarmament in the area. We did things like enhance the fight against the drugs. We had 100 days of rapid result initiative that helped us to net drugs worth of $1 billion, and alcohol and so forth that were destroyed within that short period. And then we were carrying out registration with mobile live capture machines, and particularly what we have now done in pastoralist areas, so that within a short period of time we gave IDs to over 100,000 people. So all these initiatives, we did not wait to go and write reports so that we can discuss like today. We made sure that everything that was supposed to be implemented, we implemented at that particular time. Okay. Last thing I'd like to say about JUKWA is that it is modeled around the bottom-up economic transformation agenda. We asked ourselves from the security perspective, what is bottom-up? It means that for us, from a governance perspective, it is citizen participation and the officers' participation in resolving security challenges by listening to the concerns of the people below. And I tell you something, I am a better cabinet secretary today, understanding the entire country, having sat with the people at the bottom of the pyramid in terms of governance of the ministry, every part of the nation. And I appreciate now when they ask me that we need to do this, I'll ask them, oh, is it the one we said this one? Is this the institution you wanted to? And I think this is a model that we want to replicate in the near future. Going forward, I mean.
What were some of the key issues in the different regions? Were they similar? Were there some that were unique to?
There are certain things that are unique to certain regions. Yeah. For example, land issues are very pronounced in Coast region. And then in the western part of in the northern part of the country, of course, is security challenges to start with. Part of it is issues related to terrorism and terror activities. In the northern part of the northeastern part of the country. The northern part of the country is banditry. That is, the biggest challenge we face, especially in Kerio Valley counties, which is the 6 counties of Laikipia, Samburu, Baringo, Elgeyo Marakwet, West Pokot, and Turkana, and also in the upper eastern, which is Marsabit and Isiolo. The banditry is more pronounced in those areas. So when we went there, that is an issue that you must deal with. And when you deal with those issues, you deal with security roads, you deal with communication, because there is no access to communication. They need boosters to ensure that they can communicate. They need development. Most of these areas that we have banditry and terrorism-related issues is the generally abandoned areas, which is arid and semi-arid. And as a result, these areas, because it's underdeveloped, criminals take advantage. It becomes a hiding place for them, and that's why banditry. In the western part of the country, as I said earlier, the biggest issue there is that, by the way, the leading counties when it comes to alcohol abuse, other than Nairobi, is the western part of the country. Kakamega, Bungoma, Trans Nzoia, and you go to the Nyanza counties. Those are the leading. Kisumu actually is number 2, Kakamega is number 1 in the leading in the alcohol. And then that side also has a unique challenge, which is gender-based, sexual and gender-based violence. Defilement is very high in the western part of the country, including Nyanza side, Kisii, up to Bomet, the highest number of cases of defilement. I think research should tell us why, but in terms of statistics, the reporting, it is the highest in those areas. And then when you come to places like Nairobi, of course, Nairobi is a concoction of almost everything by virtue of the numbers that are here, the pressure that is in this place, and then the land issues. Land issues are confined around urban and peri-urban areas, and then the higher fertile areas of former White Islands. That's Rift Valley and some parts of Western, where we have many land issues that are driven by poor succession issues, lack of titling, invasion of big lands, large tracts of lands that are owned by individuals in those areas, land fraud that is perpetuated by land officers together with characters who want to take over people's land. So this is a summary of the issues that are in the country. If you go to, say, areas like, for example, a unique thing, Nyeri is leading in suicides, and then the suicide is among men. Of a bit older men, and there was a lot of theories about why so and what is the issue. And in the Mount Kenya region generally, we had most of the challenges were around alcohol, but not as high as the western part of the country, but and petty crimes like theft and so forth. So that is a summary of the state of the nation when it comes to these issues. And I must say that this unique challenge, what are other cross-cutting issues? Boundaries. There is a fight over boundaries across the country. I remember in the Senate, and Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr., as he then was, who is a governor now, had come up with a bill of demarcating county boundaries. And it's a big issue. It's a big issue between Lamu and Garissa, between Kitui and Tana River, between West Pokot and West Pokot and Turkana, and all these issues are fueling, conflicts among communities. And then there are intra-clan community conflicts inside counties that are driven by these boundary issues. And all of it is about fight for resources. It is worse when there is discovered mineral resources, like you saw the other day in between West Pokot and Aro in Turkana, because of discovery of gold. That fuels, that kind of conflict. So in summary, those are the issues we are facing as a nation. But the good news is that the security teams, after rearranging them, you see, when you rearrange and facilitate them, you see a very great response in terms of reducing crime.
Okay, there's a recommendation or a directive to restructure, or is it expand the anti-narcotics unit? Could you talk to us about that?
Yes, that drugs, let me say this, drugs and alcohol abuse is a big challenge we are facing now among young people. And these drug peddlers are targeting institutions of higher learning. Around universities and colleges, they have established networks for distribution of these drugs, and then the challenge of the urban areas. Part of the reason why we have challenges of drugs is porous border. You saw the route, especially from Moyale, from Ethiopia, has become a very notorious route for carrying very serious drugs to the country. An operation was done there, and it has helped. Again, there is a problem with marijuana. It's almost normalized in the country, and I guess because there is also a public conversation by political leaders who want it to be legalized, and others speak about it like it's a fashionable issue. And then the courts are very lenient terms when it comes to people arrested with bang. They are sometimes, even some of them are sentenced to community service. So it's become a challenge that we are facing. Now, why is it that this issue is persisting? One is because we don't have enough human resource within NACADA to be able to help them carry the responsibility. Alcohol also abuse, especially second generation alcohol, is high because the licensing regime by the counties is not properly managed, and you will find that many of these licensed facilities are selling second generation alcohol or adulterated alcohol, or even becomes avenues for drugs. And so why is it important to strengthen anti-narcotic unit? Because it is now having 160 officers. It's only confined around Nairobi, doesn't have enough vehicles, doesn't have resources for training, for specialized training. We think that the threat that is posed by drugs and alcohol is almost at the level of the threat that is caused by terrorism. Because, in fact, terror, you can tell these are terrorists coming from this route. But this one is permeating all over the society. Families are suffering, particularly fairly well-to-do families, because they are targeted. Their children are targeted because the persons who are selling these drugs know that these children can take money from their parents or steal from their parents and can afford to do this. So anti-narcotic unit being strengthened is to upscale its operations to the level of anti-terror unit, so that then...
So what does that mean in sort of
It means that 400 officers are going to be hired. They are going to be trained. The more resources in terms of vehicles being given to them. We're going to strengthen the government chemist so that the tests that are required by the courts can be done expeditiously, and we will increase the regional offices for these anti-narcotic, government chemists, so that they can be able to assist in that manner. And we want a multi-agency approach so that it's intelligence-led. There is an infusion of the DCI doing its job, but also there is a support for intelligence team, and there's support also from the public through NACADA and the NGAO team, so that the chiefs, the assistant chiefs are infused. So this multi-agency approach, which is the approach we are using in fight against the terror, has borne very good results, is going to be the next approach. We want, when Kenyans see the anti-narcotic unit, they see that this is the savior that is going to protect the children.
Okay. There are quite some ambitious proposals, and some of them which would cost money. So 900 police stations to be built in 2 years. The government to procure 3,000 vehicles, giving priority to electric vehicles. There is the formal recognition of village elders and then giving them a stipend of 3,000 shillings each. And then there is chiefs and assistant chiefs, their AIE is increased by 15,000 shillings quarterly. I mean, this is quite a lot, and this is, you know, an expense. Could you talk to us about how you're going to fund all?
First, let me say that on the infrastructure, we have a problem with police infrastructure. It is evident. You go all over the place, police stations, some of them 1930s and so forth, and we expect them to give us better results. So we had to have a conversation with the housing department so that then through the support of the Ministry of Housing and Housing Levy, we can build 300 of them. NGCDF already is building, most of the constituencies are building police stations. So we are saying, we are encouraging the NGCDF to only build one police station per every sub-county, and then, which means it's affordable because it is spread, and the law allows them to do so. The amount is spread across one constituency, just setting aside maybe 20 million, and they can pace it between two financial years. And then now the 300 is going to be budgeted through the Treasury, and which comes to, because we are going to do 300 police stations, that's about 3 billion. That can be budgeted also within 2 financial years, and that discussion we have had with the Treasury, and it is possible. On the question of vehicle, let me just say, for the police stations and the chief's offices, Ngao offices and so forth, we have provided standard designs for all police stations across the country, which are been costed and seen to be affordable, so that then this is achieved. Now, on the question of the vehicles, already this was an ongoing procurement. It's only that it's stalled at some point, and the Treasury and us have been working on it to upscale the vehicles to 3,000, and this is a leased program, just the same as the one that is existing now. We are expanding the lease program, so the resources are spread also over 7 to 10 years, based on the negotiation we'll have on lease program. The only challenge now is dealing with a good supplier for the first time who can give us a good number of electric vehicles, particularly in these all urban areas. It will help us resolve this problem. Also, to sort out this issue of Ngao officers not having vehicles, particularly the ACCs, we are thinking we can have a plan where the ACC will contribute certain amount, government contributes certain amount, they buy a vehicle and it's your own vehicle. Then you can maintain it, and then you use the AIEs that you are given to you to run the vehicle so that you have a decent transport mechanism. On the village elders, this is an issue that has been, many governments from President Kibaki, President Uhuru, and then us. And so we thought that, and so many motions, bills, proposals have been made. And we thought that this is an issue that is long overdue. It is also possible to budget for it. It is modeled around, why it's 3,000 shillings, modeled around the social fund that is supporting the elderly and the indigents in the country. And this is the figure that's achievable. Just assume, for example, that the number of older people and persons with disabilities and so forth who are getting support now have been expanded by 100,000. And since we have up to June to start expanding it, the budgeting process will resolve that issue. Finally, is that the AIE is also achievable. It's not a lot of money when you look at it quarterly, because there are only 13, there are about 15,000 chiefs and assistant chiefs. That comes to less than $1 billion in a year. So again, the discussion had already been made with Treasury, and this is achievable. It's budgeted. It's not just statements that are. It is planned. It is planned.
Okay.
And
so
that is why.
Sorry, it's planned for the next.
It's next financial year.
Okay.
That is why.
So all of these proposals will take effect.
Will take effect from 1st of June.
Okay. I want to ask you this regarding one of those proposals. You said in your tweet, and we had the president say it, directing the police officers in the rank of constable who are aged 50 years and above to be promoted.
Yes. Well, by the time you are 50 years and you are still a constable, which is the lowest rank, it means that you have been there for at least 30 years. That is a very long time, especially like now we've recruited officers. They're 18, 19, 20, say even if you are 25. By the time you are 50, you've done 25 years in service. So it is only fair that you at least move one rank as you wait for your retirement, which is going to happen in less than 10 years, and that had already been factored by National Police Service.
All right, but the president was giving this direction? In what capacity?
He was giving us the President of the Republic of Kenya, who is responsible for looking for the financial support for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
According to the Constitution, the president cannot give direct orders to the police on matters of operation or policy. The National Police Service is independent.
Yes, it cannot.
But policy directions can be given by yourself, the Cabinet Secretary.
Yes, but
so again, I ask, in what capacity was the president
as the president of
directing?
Kenya? No, what the Constitution says, he cannot give directions on operations. Operations means arrest Yvonne, arrest Murkomen or somebody else. But the president can increase their salary. He can improve their welfare. He can build their police stations. So
but that policy direction is given through who?
He can give it directly or through myself, because, you know, the president, being the chair of the cabinet, I'm just, even the Constitution talks about other policies, but these are when you are giving policy directions that are non-operation in nature. An operation for this matter is not...
Understood.
Yes, exactly.
But the president can give policy directions in writing to the cabinet secretary.
Well, it can...
Was that direction given in writing to the office of the Cabinet Secretary?
No, eventually it will be reduced in writing. And when it's reduced in writing, it is the Cabinet Secretary now will sign the letter to the IG. Eventually, when we reduce these directives into writing.
So there's no written directive
eventually,
to you as the Cabinet Secretary?
No, not yet.
So he said that before giving
no, what we
did
was that these policy decisions were subjected to National Security Council discussions. So once, as the President and the Chair of the National Security Council, once those discussions were agreed and I have been given directions that this is possible budgetary-wise and so forth, then it is for me to communicate the same to the IG. And the President is the one who has announced.
Okay, let's take some questions now from our viewers who are watching.
Maybe before you take the questions, the only one thing I just wanted to emphasize is that in the banditry sector, I think it's important to tell the people of Kenya that this government has made tremendous progress in terms of issues of banditry. Especially along the Kerio Valley, we've been able to do massive disarmament. We've been able to ensure that people who had been chased from their homes are back, especially in places like Baringo. Schools have been meopened. We have ensured that communities are living together. Now, also to tell the people of Kenya that our focus now is in this Meru, Isiolo, Samburu belt, that we are still facing some challenges, and some parts of Pokot and Turkana, a small area there. And I promise the people of Kenya that using the same strategies that we have applied in the last few months, applied in these areas, we are going to sort out this issue of banditry. I just wanted to say so because it's a live matter, particularly in the Meru, Isiolo, and Samburu belt in this corner, where we're still facing some challenges.
Okay, let's take some of those questions now. Here we are. For the 15,000 plus sick, injured, bedridden, old and weak or medically unfit officers, what is the CS doing to fast-track retirement on medical grounds, pay legally due benefits and recruit replacements immediately? Over 30,000 underperforming civil servants could also be retired and replaced. That is from Ndishu.
I am not, to be very honest, I'm not aware about the 15,000 sick, injured, bedridden, old and weak officers. But there is a policy that deals with every police officer. We don't retire them because they got injured when they were on duty. Instead, we deploy them to perform office duties and so forth, especially those who get injured. And of course, those who want to take retirement, there is a retirement policy within the National Police Service.
Okay, let's take the next question. And we have that here. CS Murkomen has mentioned the low education level of these overzealous officers. Why then do they recruit them from low-level education while we know they focus more on physical fitness instead of individuals who can make better judgment?
First of all, is that police and the defense forces generally recruit officers for different reasons. There are officers who are ground officers who become constables. There are those who are hired for purpose of leadership. Generally, they are called cadets and so forth. So everybody plays their role. And there is no reason why Kenyans who have, say, a D plus, should not be given a chance to serve as constables, because those ones are more focused. Most of them, once they are recruited to service, they are willing to serve any part of the country, and they do not want to run away from responsibility because suddenly they've gotten new degree qualifications and they want to leave, use their service to leave to other places. They have full dedication, and this is not, in other countries you don't even need to provide any education papers. You are recruited, you just look at the physical fitness and then you're recruited.
Okay, here is another question, sorry, before we go to that one. Have you made any arrests in Malava and Mbeere following the violence witnessed?
Well, I know investigations were ongoing, so I need to find, but there were some arrests that were done in, some arrests were done in Malava immediately. Some of those issues happened. That the same was done in Homa Bay. I would have to inquire from the Office of the Inspector General how far they are with investigation, how many people have been arrested. And like in Homa Bay, I know that there are some people who are still being held by the in remand, awaiting arraignment in court to facilitate further investigation. So,
okay, and here's another one from a viewer who says, C.S. Murkomen, you say the president has no role in giving directives in charge of operations, but yet the president did talk about shooting protesters in the leg.
Yeah.
And giving a directive.
No, he didn't give a directive. He gave his advice. A directive must be in writing. That's the Constitution.
But a directive we've seen him make today that is not yet in writing, like you say.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Even those directives, he was pronouncing what it will be reduced in writing by myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's another question, again, to do with the issue of operations. That the promotion of a police officer is an HR issue, and it is up to the National Police Service Commission, not the president.
Yeah.
Or the Office of the Cabinet Secretary.
Yes, but it is up to the president and the national executive to provide budget for that. And when the president says that we are going to do that promotion, he was doing it based on the advice we gave him through Jukwaa la Usalama process after the National Police Service had gone through the required motions. So he was announcing what we had already, consultation has already been done.
Yeah, but the law goes beyond the issue of consultation, right, Waziri?
Yeah.
It says on the recommendation of the Inspector General, who will develop and keep under review all matters relating to human resources, policies of members of the service.
All those processes, we have gone through all this process. In fact, I'm sure the names will go out anytime this week.
All right, so why aren't we hearing about that promotion from the National Police Service Commission?
You will hear from them. Once the officers get their letters, you will hear.
Yeah, but why are we hearing it from the president and not the National Police Service Commission?
Because the president has the policy responsibility to pronounce what has been agreed, and it would never have been done by National Police Service.
Sorry, he has the policy responsibility to announce what has been decided by the National Police Service Commission?
Yes. He's the president of Kenya.
Which part of the law is that?
It doesn't have to be in law. The law does not deny, does not preclude him from doing it.
But has the National Police Service Commission done it?
Yes.
Per law?
The processes have been adhered to. Yeah, it is true. You are surprised.
No,
it is true.
I am not surprised. I'm only asking that perhaps these things are seen to be done procedurally.
They have done.
Because this is a constitution that was put in place.
It will not survive the test of time if it's not done constitutionally.
Allow me to finish.
Yeah.
It would be important that this is the constitution, and the constitution was very clear, and the people of Kenya were very clear in terms of wanting separation and non-interference of the executive in the work and the role of the police.
No, the same constitution.
So when we say advice versus directive, and we say all the processes were done and that it'll be announced, and that it is the president's role to announce policy of the National Police Service Commission, I'm struggling to see where that is.
The president has a role to announce policy directives based on government manifesto. Let me ask you, Yvonne, why would the president say that if we are elected, we will increase the salary of the police? Why? Because he has the responsibility to provide the budgetary allocation for that function to be achieved, and therefore...
He's not responsible for the budgetary allocation.
He is.
Parliament.
The executive is the owner of the budget.
Okay.
Parliament interrogates and passes the budget.
Right. So because he has the responsibility...
He has a constitutional responsibility, absolutely.
Understood.
Yeah.
But is it him who then decides on an HR matter that is clearly outlined to be the National Police Service Commission
as I've told you, the same constitution. I understand where you're going. Anyway, I can give you proceed.
I've given you a moment.
Yeah, I agree.
For the last 40 minutes.
Sorry, proceed.
It is the role of the National Police Service Commission to sit down and make these recommendations and make these decisions about which officers will be promoted, what rank, what age, all of those questions. Now, the question I'm asking is, how do we know that that has been done? Because all we have seen is a directive from the president, which seems to go contrary to the Constitution.
It is not contrary to the Constitution. There is nowhere where the Constitution precludes the president by supporting the National Police Service and providing a directive from the executive to say that the National Police Service, having requested him, because that could never have been done without National Police making a request.
So was the Salaries and Remunerations Commission, did they give their advice?
The Salary and Remuneration Commission does not advise National Police Service.
This is what it says. The National Police Service Commission Act spells out the following functions. It says, with the advice of the SRC, determine the appropriate remuneration and benefits of the service and the staff.
But you know that's not benefits. Promotion is different from salaries.
So what happens after?
Promotion is the preserve of the National Police Service.
Okay.
And the National Police Service, to do so, seeks the support of the executive for that purpose. And that support was sought. And that's why the president was granting the same in form of a directive. It's that complicated.
Let's take the next question. Here we are, from Anonymous. Kindly inform Waziri, the confirmed gang he has mentioned in Nakuru has crossed the red line. Currently, young people are stabbing people as late as yesterday. Can he have an immediate intervention on the same and visit Nakuru Kivumbini, I believe?
Yeah, I totally agree. And as I said earlier, I can admit that this is a continuous challenge that we are facing. And our police officers on the ground are always alert to deal with these issues, and they have been dealing it continuously. The thing about security sector is that security is a continuous process. There is no day you can say, now we have achieved it and we will do nothing. So it requires eternal vigilance.
Let's take the next one. Maggie Washira says, nowadays we just witness border guys snatching phones, and it's become the order of the day. One cannot walk freely without the fear of these thieves. I feel sad for our country. I mean, it's more of a comment.
It is true. It is true. In the report, we have singled out border misuse of the border sector in terms of committing crimes, including gangs and so forth. And what we have proposed is to work together with the Ministry of Transport and NTSA to make sure that they are kitted. They are officially kitted, all the border sector operators to be in a cooperative and to be accountable. And then their number plates, they must always at every given time display their number plates so that even a crime occurs, we should be able to track it. What we want to do also for most of the urban areas, actually we are targeting about 6 or 7 urban areas. We want to expand the IC3 program, which is the information communication, these cameras that we have been deploying across the country. We want to make sure that the cities and a few more towns are covered so that we can be able to deal with this problem.
Okay. Final question? Yeah. Philip Correa says, ask the CS the issue of
Gwitembe.
Yeah, the Gwitembe and Angata conflict. What is the way forward?
Well, I think we have made progress in terms of Angata conflict when the land issue was dealt with. The Gwitembe issue is still being handled. I had a meeting this evening with Honorable Kitayama, Honorable Robi, Honorable Joanna Ngeno, and Honorable Sunkuli to discuss. We discussed extensively strategies of addressing these issues, including the proliferation of small arms around between Narok and Migori counties. And the Inspector General of Police has promised to make sure that he carries out also an operation to snatch or to take away these guns from these criminals who have causing havoc in that area. We are also working on strengthening the police presence in that place. There was one police post, if you saw in the news that time when we had a problem in Angata, some citizens went and destroyed a police camp that was there. We have now agreed that we need to restore and rebuild. You saw when I was in Jukwaa la Usalama, Migori, we had a problem with some of the officers operating there because they were drunk and disorderly and so forth. And I've told the IG that he needs to make sure that the police officers who are deployed to different parts of the country are not, like such sensitive areas, you don't send people there as a question of punishment. If someone is struggling with alcohol, they should be taken to rehabilitation, not being sent to certain areas. And then, the security situation is worsened in particular corners of the country. And hopefully we are agreeing on the day I will go have a barasa on the issue around Lolgorian and the challenges that we have in that area about land. But by and large, the Angata issue, land issue has been resorted. The Gwitembe area is where we still have a challenge, and we discuss with the MPs how we are going to go about it.
All right, so yes, closing comments. I have about 2 minutes.
Well, I want to thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. I want to thank all the stakeholders across Kenya who gave their views. I promise the people of Kenya that the views in Jukwaa la Usalama will be fully implemented. We will remain accountable to the people of Kenya through channels like yourself and the media and directly. And I promise also that the Jukwaa la Usalama will not be a one-off. We have agreed that sub-county and county security teams should be able to hold forums frequently, at least quarterly, with the citizens so that they can get citizen feedback. And I want to ask the people of Kenya to continue helping us by making management of our security to be participatory so that then we can resolve the issues that we have in our country. I am excited to congratulate all the village elders. Finally, the long journey that you've had for recognition. His Excellency the President has recognized the village elders, and we will work tirelessly to ensure that they are registered in readiness for them to be supported with a stipend as they do their work in every part of the country, and we recognize and appreciate the work they do.
Thank you. Yeah. Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Interior and National Administration, Kipchumba Murkomen, thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much.
On The Explainer tonight, let's take a break. We're back with more. KenGen appointed to operate the country's first nuclear power plant as the country readies for transition to nuclear power. Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us on The Explainer. Now, civil society groups are demanding the immediate rollout of the Electronic Government Procurement System, EGP, after a court order halted its implementation. They warned that corruption in national and county procurement has surged, now costing Kenyans up to 3 billion shillings daily, up from 2 billion under the previous regime. This follows the launch of a Citizen Watch Manual, a new tool designed to help Kenyans track, question and report corruption in public contracts. Willie Lusige reports.
Civil society groups led by Peace and Transparency International say procurement and contracting remain the biggest corruption loopholes in both national and county governments. They warn that the country is now losing between 2.7 and 3 billion shillings every day, money that should be funding essential public services.
And previously we used to lose 2 billion a day. Nowadays we lose 3 billion a day. If 70% of that is lost to corruption, then and to procurement, then we lose 2.7 billion to corruption. The bulk of corruption money is lost through procurement.
The lobby groups insist that the e-procurement system, though not perfect, will seal major loopholes and stop billions from leaking through inflated tenders and questionable contracts.
Unfortunately, we are not yet able to start e-procurement as a country. Why? Because we started e-procurement before we amended the law. So because of that, the court has stopped e-procurement for some time. We need e-procurement to monitor processes. Systems will not solve everything, but they are necessary based on where we are.
Many essential stages in the procurement process that we don't look at, and that's where a lot of the corruption is. For instance, even in the budgeting stage, we know, of course, the case of Kenya and budgeted corruption, don't we?
The newly launched Citizen Watch manual aims to empower Kenyans to follow the money, to know who won the tenders, who owns the companies, how much contracts cost, and to spot corruption in government procurement at both national and county levels.
You know, the CR12 forms, the ones that give information on who owns the companies, many times we're still having proxies, proxies. We're not seeing the real owners of companies in those documents, but there should be sanctions against people who are falsifying this information.
Activists say the manual will also help build a strong movement demanding accountability and transparency in all public contracting.
The kind of mind-boggling corruption that is in procurement at the national level is serious. And we cannot deal with this thing unless we build a system. Could we now use the resources, the tools that we have built, to build the movement for integrity, the movement for accountability, because that's the only thing that we are missing.
Willie Lusige, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
The judiciary has been challenged to reform its operations to attract more Kenyans to seek justice through the courts. Currently, only 10% of Kenyans turn to the judiciary, with the majority opting for alternative justice systems. The judiciary is now looking to expand access to justice and collaborate with other East African countries to make those services more accessible and user-friendly.
Judges, magistrates and judicial officers from East Africa meeting in Nairobi acknowledged the cross-cutting challenges that residents of their country face in accessing justice.
So for many of our people, the formal court system remains slow, it remains costly, it remains distant, and many times intimidating. Experiences have been shared and testimonies have been shared that even judges themselves tremble to imagine they can appear before a court. Let me say I'm one of those who also fear to appear before a court.
Even those of us who are lawyers and judges, the courtroom disorients us. How much so for the citizen who is pursuing some issue, and they are from a corner there, and this is their first experience before a judge or a magistrate. For millions, especially women, youth, small entrepreneurs, and rural communities, the justice system appears more like a fortress than a support structure.
According to the Kenyan judiciary, access to justice remains poor, with only 10% of the population trusting the courts enough to seek solutions from them.
19% cannot deal with their disputes. They have disputes, they have problems, but they die with them. 71% seek alternatives.
The numbers are nearly identical for the other countries in the region, underscoring the need for an integrated collaborative approach to solutions, which the judiciaries agree include moving towards people-centered justice.
That our judiciaries have increasingly embraced multi-door approaches to justice. Mechanisms such as the alternative justice systems, AJS, court annexed mediation, small claims courts, and restorative justice processes reflect a growing recognition that justice cannot be confined to stone buildings or rigid procedures, It must instead travel to where the people live, work, trade, and build families.
The judges and magistrates were also urged to uphold safeguards to ensure that expediency does not substitute fairness, even as they expand alternative paths to justice. Brenda Wanga, Citizen TV.
Kiambu Governor Kimani Wamatangi is raising the alarm over his safety after a live bullet struck a house just meters from his Kibiku residence. The incident occurred Sunday afternoon as the governor was inspecting his home. The projectile tore through a neighbor's rooftop, landing dangerously close to a child's bed. The shaken resident reported hearing a loud bang before discovering the bullet lodged inside the house. Governor Wamatangi has called on the Inspector General of Police to personally oversee the investigation, citing delays and a lack of updates from local security agencies. The Kiambu County Assembly Majority Leader echoed the governor's concerns, alleging threats from high-profile political figures and urging national security organs to enhance protection for Wamatangi and his allies.
Hii risasi wenye walikuwa wanaongea wataalam, isipokuwa tunagojea ripoti ya mwisho, wanasema imepigwa kutoka kwa bunduki kubwa kama zile kina AK-47. Hivyo ni kusema tukiwa hapa mahali tuko kitu kama 50 meters kutoka kwa nyumba yangu, mwenye alikuwa anapiga labda then alikuwa kitu kama another 200 or 300 meters mahali hapo. So sasa swali ni nani, mchana sio usiku, mchana saa 9
nikasikia kitu imegoga mabati, kuangalia nikadhani ni jiwe, na nikaenda nikapaguza kitanda mchanga, kisha nikarudi. Sikufikiria ni nini hiyo. Kisha nikaenda, ndio nilienda nikaona shimo huko kwa mabati. Nilipoangalia chini nikaona hii risasi.
Sababu gani ati mlio risasi inaanguka karibu na governor, boma ya governor, na security agencies ambao wako hapo karibu wanasema hawajajua?
Learners from Bidii Primary School in Makadara, Nairobi will benefit from digital classrooms and bursaries courtesy of an initiative by the Kenyan government in partnership with China's embassy. Speaking at Bidii Primary School, where he was overseeing the commissioning of classrooms, Education Cabinet Secretary Migoso Gamba said such investments ensure that no learner is left out, as the current CBC curriculum requires such digital school infrastructure. Ogamba acknowledged that many schools in the country struggle to manage learners, but claimed that the government has built 23,000 classrooms in primary and junior schools across the country in the last 2 years, adding that 1,600 labs are under construction. He pledged to expand such investments that improve school infrastructure. China's ambassador to Kenya, Guo Haiyan, applauded Kenyan government's support in making the partnership a success, noting their commitment to making education a priority.
Wasasi, tafadhali tuwapigie watoto wetu makofi.
The classes in our schools. And I'm really happy to see that Bidii Primary has taken up the challenge. They're changing their gates, they're changing their office, they're painting their classrooms. So we're going to raise the standards because these are our children.
The goal is not just to expand infrastructure, it is also to modernize and improve the current infrastructure so that it is fit for purpose under the new education system.
Generation after generation of young people in both China and Kenya have transformed personal lives and country development through education, the pathway to self-reliance and empowerment.
ODM leaders want the 10-point agenda signed between former Prime Minister, the late Raila Odinga, and President William Ruto to be implemented in totality before the 2027 general election. The leaders spoke as they received winners from last Thursday's by-election at Chungwa House. The event brought together party leadership and supporters. Moses Omondi of Ugunja, Harry Kombe of Magarini and Boyd Were of Kasipul were formally welcomed following their victories. ODM party leader Dr. Oburu Oginga, who was present, praised the candidates for their strong performance and congratulated not only those who won, but also those who participated in the by-elections but did not clinch victory, asking them to remain strong for the party and work hard for Kenyans.
Aya, baada ya hiyo picha, tafadhali wabunge waketi kidogo.
Na nataka kuwashukuru wananchi wa Kasipul kwa kuniamini. They believed in me and they voted me in. They believed in a youthful leader. Walitambua kuwa sahihi ni wakati wa Gen Z. Lazima niwashukuru wananchi wa Kasipul. I want to assure the people of Kasipul that I'm bringing new ideas, I'm bringing good leadership.
I want to promise here and today that as Moses Omondi, I will live by the party's ideologies up to the end. And I will forever be very keen and seek guidance from my leadership, the party leadership.
Going forward, we are there for the party, and I will stand for the party in Magarini and Kilifi County as a whole.
I want you, members of ODM, to be proud. You should be proud, but we should work hard. Because if we don't work hard and make our party strong, we are going to be taken for granted.
Business News, brought to you by Emirates.
The best holiday ever's finally over.
When you fly Emirates, your holiday isn't over until your flight is over.
The Ministry of Energy and Petroleum has designated the Kenya Electricity Generating Company, KenGen, as the owner and operator of the country's first nuclear power plant to be developed in partnership with the Nuclear Power and Energy Agency. Cabinet Secretary Opiyo Wandayi says the first phase of the nuclear program will involve the development of a roughly 2-gigawatt facility, which the government intends to expand to as much as 6 gigawatts over time. The decision to place KenGen at the helm, he says, was driven by the company's long history of running the country's largest and most technically complex generation assets, including geothermal fields and hydropower stations. The move comes as the government accelerates its ambition of adding roughly 10 gigawatts of power to the national grid.
As you are aware, NUPEA has already settled on a number of sites in the country, in Kilifi County, in Kwale County, and in Siaya County.
The construction is scheduled to commence in 2027, and with the direction of His Excellency, we hope that this energy can come on the grid within 7 years. What will happen is that once we have the owner-operator, the activities should start in earnest. And as NUPEA, as the program promoter, we are going to deploy all our skills and assets to ensure that we meet the timelines that have been set.
I just want to assure Kenyans that we are equal to the task. We have developed very many power plants. So using the same expertise that we have used before to build the geothermal, to build the hydro, to build the wind, we are going to ensure that the nuclear power plant, the first one in Kenya, is done within the timelines that are expected to help Kenya to safeguard ourselves to the power that is required to take us to the next level.
Kenya has validated a new 10-year research financing and capacity strengthening master plan aimed at closing the country's long-standing research and development funding gap. The framework proposes sustainable financing models, including private sector partnerships, diaspora engagement, and research and innovation bonds, to help Kenya move towards its statutory 2% of GDP research investment target. It also seeks to fix years of fragmented efforts by improving coordination, harmonizing regulation, and strengthening governance across government agencies. Now, once adopted, the master plan is expected to modernize research infrastructure, build human capital, and accelerate commercialization of innovations.
We are also looking at modalities such as public-private partnership as well. These are some of the impetus that we are talking about to ensure that we can fully fund. We are not going to rely 100% of the government. We are also looking at other modalities, like, for example, tax incentives, tax rebates, and tax holidays, that people will be able to invest in this space for us to be able to have a very strong ecosystem in supporting research, technology, and innovation.
Current funding levels are 120 billion Kenya shillings, but we look to move to roughly up to 300 billion as envisaged within the 2% GDP. We are keen on research to commercialization. Most of our research outputs are not commercialized because of a lack of adequate funding.
The government has kicked off business training for micro, small and medium enterprises under the Kenya Jobs and Economic Transformation Project. The program, led by the Micro and Small Enterprises Authority, equips 94 clusters across the country with practical skills to improve productivity, access new markets and create jobs. The training focuses on priority value chains, including edible oils, construction materials and textiles. The Director General of the authority, Henry Ritha, says the training is designed to transform SMEs, or rather MSMEs, into engines of innovation and inclusive economic growth.